Good morning, everyone.
「
It's been a brilliant weekend. Sunday afternoon on the outskirts of the live music capital of the US. And here's the starting grid. Not so much on song yesterday. George Russell crashed. He's in the pit lane because his car needed rebuilding. Liam Lawson had a big engine penalty. Joe Granu just 5 places for him. He's 18th, Lawson 19th, Lewis Hamilton down in 17th. Worst start here ever in the US. Valtteri Bottas ahead of him in 16th alongside Franco Colapinto. Both Williams out in Q1 here for the second year in a row. Alex Albon 14th and Lance Stroll 13th for Aston Martin. Esteban Ocon in 12th, his best qualifying performance since Spa. Nico Hülkenberg out-qualified by his Haas teammate Kevin Magnussen for the 4th time this season. Yuki Tsunoda will start 10th alongside Sergio Perez, who didn't manage to set a time in the final part of qualifying. Kevin Magnussen's in the top 10 here for the first time in 2024, and the first time here in 10 years. He's alongside Fernando Alonso. Pierre Gasly starts 6th. Here's an Alpine's highest start of the season, and Oscar Piastri's 5th, where he was in Singapore. It's an all-Ferrari second row as Charles Leclerc 4th and Carlos Sainz 3rd, who out-qualified Leclerc for the first time in 6 races. Verstappen has won here from second before in 2022, and Lando Norris with a 4th pole in the last 5 Grand Prix heads that grid as they charge up the hill towards turn 1. And yesterday in the sprint we saw a brilliant start from 4th for Lando Norris, who nicked 2nd by the time they got to turn 3. Max Verstappen though held them all at bay. He returned to winning ways. Can he carry that on today, Martin Brundle?
I think Lando knows he's got to, from there, go over to the left-hand side and defend the inside line. Take that neat and tidy route he went through yesterday as well, and to hold off, and then try to control the race in the early
this is far back.
It's as far back as he's ever been in the United States.
And you're not even allowed to jump the start these days. If you were way back in the old days, you could have a little rolling start and nobody would notice too much.
This is a man who speaks from experience.
Having watched people around me do that, but yeah, too many sensors on the cars these days, and yeah, Lewis has spent pretty much all of his career, hasn't he, at the very sharp end of a Formula One field, and that's going to hit him up. So the top 12 on the grid, all on hang the expense, brand new medium compound tyres, and the first one on the used hard compound tyres actually, although they just scrubbed them in, is Lance Stroll in 13th. So the top dozen have gone exactly the same way to start this Grand Prix.
Hamilton starts on the hard tyre as well, as does Franco Colapinto, Liam Lawson, and also George Russell. He'll be starting from the pit lane after his crash yesterday. Basically, his car needed fixing. Should have gone into parc fermé. Mercedes needed extra time to work on that car, and they broke the parc fermé rules, which is why now it's all been built up properly. He's got to start from the pit lane. Lando Norris, the 6th different pole sitter in the last 6 runnings of this US Grand Prix. Pole hasn't traditionally been a great place to lead the first lap. Only once in the last 6 years has the pole sitter done that. Lando Norris nipped by to lead the first 17 laps of last year's race. He's got to try and keep Verstappen at bay at the start, and then both of them, Martin, have got to try and keep the Ferraris at bay, because I get the feeling the Scuderia are pretty confident this afternoon.
I agree with you, although the sprint doesn't show what's going to happen in the Grand Prix, because they go flat out in that. They don't have to think about tyre preservation. They're on much lower fuel loads because it's only a 19-lap race, and there are no pit stops. Go for it and see how far you get. So it's not indicative, but we did see yesterday that Ferrari were pretty kind to their tyres.
I do wonder What's Ferrari's strategy going to be today? Carlos Sainz is nearest to Verstappen and Norris. Do they let him loosen the reins, as it were, go and charge after the front two, and Charles Leclerc just hang back a bit, maybe preserve those tyres for later on in the stint? Is that a way to run this?
I don't know what the team would have said to the two drivers, but Carlos Sainz, who's obviously been biffed out of there for Lewis Hamilton next year, was very much driving like a man driving for his own career, his own credibility yesterday. And you can understand that to a large extent. But I do think Ferrari have got a great chance of winning this Grand Prix, actually. Sainz is ahead of Leclerc on the grid, and Sainz will think every bit as much as Leclerc, if a Ferrari can win today, it's going to be mine.
Kimi Raikkonen, their last winner here at the Circuit of the Americas. Max Verstappen has taken victory in each of the last 3 years in this part of Texas, and he, along with Lewis Hamilton, this man here, could become the first driver today to win 7 races, 7 Grand Prix in the United States. No driver has ever done that before.
Presumably Lewis could have changed the setup on his car at Mercedes and started from the pit lane, but you know you're going to be, well, along with his teammate, last out today, whereas at least starting 17th, if he can pick off 2 or 3 on the first lap and then another 1 or 2, suddenly, I mean, if he can get into the tail end of the top 10 today, somewhere between 6th and 10th for Lewis Hamilton at the end of the race, he'll have done a good job.
As the Drivers' Championship, as the pole sitter Lando Norris slots into position in a few moments' time. 339 points to Max Verstappen, 285 points to Lando Norris now. 54 points the difference after yesterday's sprint. McLaren still hold the lead in the Constructors' Championship.
This is the bit I used to love. All the work's done, the setup. You're on the grid, wherever you're on the grid. You know, all the umbilical cords are out of the car. You're on your own now to get the car up and running and through the first corner. The team have done their job to the best of their ability, and until strategy comes into play, this is pure racing.
So the first 5 are in position. Only driver to win from pole in the last 10 Grand Prix in 2024 is Lando Norris. He did it in Zandvoort and he did it in Singapore, and he starts on pole today. And Martin, he needs a big race today to kick off this final quarter and just convince himself and McLaren and everyone else that he is a realistic title challenger.
I agree. He needs to pull some points back on Verstappen and hope Ferrari can get in there as well. And as I say, Lando's got to get off the line and get to the inside and defend it. Max is already pointing slightly right. His intentions are clear.
19 cars then on the grid, and we wait for that green flag. There it is, 56 laps to come here at the Circuit of the Americas. It's the US Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go. Norris gets away slightly better. Max Verstappen's coming at him, and Carlos Sainz is ahead of Charles Leclerc. Down the inside though goes Max Verstappen. Lando Norris gets forced wide. Through goes the Ferrari. It's Charles Leclerc from 4th to 1st. At the first corner, Leclerc leads the US Grand Prix from Verstappen, from Sainz, from Lando Norris, who's now battling just ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri, who's going wheel to wheel with Pierre Gasly.
Lando, you had all the right ideas, you just didn't fulfill it completely. You left at least a Red Bull-sized gap in there, then the squabble at the top of the hill, and Ferrari was, thank you, I'll have some of that.
And there was a squabble in the midfield, and it's Esteban Ocon who got turned around at turn 1, and he is now plumb last in this race. We see there Yuki Tsunoda just ahead of Fernando Alonso, and behind them Liam Lawson in the other RB, already getting past Franco Colapinto in the Williams.
Hamilton 12th, Hamilton P12.
He's had an excellent start. There was a right old kerfuffle at turn 1, and Alex Albon hit the Alpine. That's what sent Esteban Ocon around. It's Leclerc from Verstappen. Here comes Carlos Sainz though on Max Verstappen in these opening stages. Now Verstappen's got the inside line. Switch back here from Sainz. Can't quite get past.
Verstappen surely has to give that place back. He was way off the track. He'll say, well, so was Sainz, and he pushed me out there. I thought Max might just ease the Ferrari through there so as not to risk Lando Norris getting in on the action. We'll see what race control say about that.
What a first lap that has been, and what a first lap from Charles Leclerc, whose most recent win was at Monza, where he started 4th on the grid and where he leads after lap 1 from 4th on the grid, over a second and a half to Max Verstappen. Sainz 3rd, Norris 4th, Piastri, Gasly, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Perez and Alonso, the top 10. Hamilton, as you said, Martin, up now into 12th, George Russell, past Esteban Ocon, who's running last, and we're on board with Carlos Sainz, who has started 3rd, currently in 3rd, has Max Verstappen ahead of him.
Did Hamilton then say up to P12 from that back of the grid slot, so that's worked beautifully. DRS, drag reduction system enabled. There are 2 of them around here. You can get the rear wing open, but at the moment Leclerc is more than well over a second ahead of Verstappen. Verstappen will have Sainz with his wing open.
Now, up to 20 kilometers an hour of extra pace down this back straight when you've got DRS, and you can see the advantage that Carlos Sainz has as he's almost neck and neck with Max Verstappen going into turn 12. This fight's coming back at you once again. Behind these 2, Lando Norris is clear of his teammate Oscar Piastri. Pierre Gasly is on Piastri's tail though. Sainz, what can he do with Max Verstappen this time? Takes a wider line to get a slingshot out of that corner and try and find and force away past the Red Bull. Verstappen placing it perfectly.
Yeah, Sainz needs to just keep it neat, tidy, don't take anything out of your tyres, because he'll get his chance. He gets one down the pit straight, might give him a run into turn 1, and failing that, he's got a great chance again after turn 11 on this lap that they're just starting, but he must keep his tyres cool.
Someone's had a bit of a moment in the final sector, and it's Lewis Hamilton, and he's off into the gravel, and that is Lewis Hamilton out of the US Grand Prix. He has beached that Mercedes.
Yeah, that'll be a safety car.
Same corner that his teammate crashed at yesterday, Martin.
So it'll either be a virtual or an actual, I think it'll have to be an actual safety car eventually to get that out of the gravel. They'll have to put people in a vehicle on there because he's beached and going absolutely, that's so unusual for Lewis Hamilton, isn't it, to make a mistake like that. But we saw Charles Leclerc having a massive lock-up up into turn 1 just as we cut to Lewis Hamilton in the gravel trap, and that's concertina the front up, but I'm pretty sure they'll concertina a lot more anytime now, unless by some miracle Hamilton's getting that out of the gravel trap.
He isn't, and now there's a safety car. Just as Carlos Sainz was getting to the DRS activation zone, the safety car is called by race control, and Lewis Hamilton getting out of the car, and that's why the crowd are applauding, because they want to see that he's okay.
And now you gain 10 seconds by pitting under the safety cars. We watch Kimi Antonelli, who'll be out there driving that car next year, or the 2025 version of it, in place of Lewis Hamilton. You gain 11 seconds by pitting under a safety car.
But
so early in the race, isn't it? So early in the race. Would you want to give up track position? They'll be fiendishly trying to work that out on the pit wall.
Yeah, I mean, if you come in now, you're losing so many places, as you rightly state.
I'd be surprised if they did. I'd be surprised if they did come in, but...
Here's the race start, though. And we'll look at it from lights out. Lando Norris did get away well, but Verstappen in the second phase came at him, and
Lando had it covered, but he just didn't cover it enough.
Too tentative?
Just not aggressive enough. He really needed to close Max off, and that then left them sort of scuffling amongst themselves, and Leclerc and in particular filled his boots.
I tell you what, Piastri and Gasly came very, very close to contact, but there was contact with an Alpine. Alex Albon hitting Esteban Ocon and sending him spinning. Let's have a look how Charles Leclerc went from 4th to 1st, and it just opened up so beautifully for him, Martin.
Yeah, so Lando went to cover it, but he just didn't cover it enough. I don't think he realised he was fully ahead of Max. He could have gone all the way over. And, you know, that's birthday and Christmas all at once, isn't it?
He did what Lando did in the sprint yesterday, stuck to the inside of that corner. Now, you've got Alex Albon, and ahead of him is Esteban Ocon. There's Lewis Hamilton on the inside, and there is how Esteban Ocon got spun around.
I'm afraid that's a T1 Austin Classic start issue, that particular contact.
And this is Lando Norris. Just had a moment where he could have slammed that door shut, didn't do it,
Yeah.
And he paid the price.
He'll not enjoy watching that. He's too cautious. A little bit like the start in Monza, where he was too cautious into the second chicane, and his teammate was like, on that occasion, well, I'm going through then.
Now, this is Lewis Hamilton, and what happened to him? Through turn 18 we go. We know where the car ends up, but how did it get there? Oh, and all by himself.
Nothing he could do about that. He just turned in normally.
Yeah, sorry guys.
He just turned in normally, and it simply hadn't got enough rear grip.
Huh? And it's like, why? What happened? How did that happen? Say the fans who were chanting Lewis, Lewis as he got out of the car. But that is a very disappointing end to a very disappointing weekend for Lewis Hamilton. It's the first weekend in 10 that we've seen Bernd Mailander on the track. The safety car driver has been sat putting his feet up and apparently listening to us, according to him, Martin, on a Sunday afternoon. First safety car since the Canadian Grand Prix. Longest streak since Hungary 2003 through to Spain 2004. More importantly, this now closes the field back together again. Charles Leclerc had that lock up, and his tyres get a chance to cool down a bit now. He hasn't pitted. Alex Albon has been into the pits, which is not a surprise after he made contact with Ocon.
And Lando, we've reported the incident in turn 1. Any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly pushed me out. He had no intent to make the corner. Even he ran off the track, so I just had to avoid crashing into him, or him crashing into me, but yeah.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that one.
Well, given that the stewards had a look at the Albon-Ocon incident and decided no further action, I'd rather get the feeling if that was no further action, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris isn't going to lead to anything either.
And they have a different viewpoint at the start as well. They know it's more chaotic. They know that cars are 2, 3, 4 abreast as well. But that was just opportunistic for Max. He didn't smoke the tyres.
Yeah, the thing is, he overtook me by going in so hard that he went off the track, same as Budapest. It's just identical.
Understood.
It's a good argument point. If you do that, you've got to keep your car under control and keep it in play on the way in, on the way through, and on the way out of the corner. Did Verstappen go off the track? It certainly took Lando with him.
Well, Zach Brown would have been watching that from the pit wall. We're seeing a replay. Whilst we talk to you, Zach, what's the view from the McLaren pit wall as to what happened at turn 1?
Well, it's exactly the penalty Oscar got yesterday, wasn't it? Made a pass, and, you know, it was either make way or have a collision. So that wasn't on, in our opinion.
He didn't leave the track, Max, did he?
No, but he didn't. I think Lando had to make way, so that was a bit of a dive bomb. But anyways, we'll see what the stewards have to say and keep racing. Long way to go.
Either way, Zach, it was a disappointing start for Lando. The safety car is ending. Can he get back into the lead of this race?
Yeah, we always thought Ferrari were going to be the team to beat today, and Charles gets a good clean start. He's going to be pretty hard to catch, but I think we're definitely in the game. So let's see, a lot of racing to go.
Zach, thanks ever so much indeed. CEO at McLaren. We'll be back with you later in this race, which Martin Brundle is about to get underway once again. When does Charles Leclerc go?
Yeah, in fact, it was Verstappen maintaining position so far off the track at T12 that actually caught my attention more than turn 1. But as Zach said, let's see what the stewards say about it, if anything.
They're making their way very, very slowly now towards turn 19. Rather get the filly on the exit. Here we go. Charles Leclerc is going to give them the jump, and Max Verstappen was anticipating that and anticipated it very well indeed, and he's within a car length of Charles Leclerc going around that final turn across the line as the lights go green and we can get racing again.
No DRS, of course, for 1 lap after the restart under a safety car as well, but Verstappen absolutely telegraphed that one a treat, didn't he?
He certainly did. Charles Leclerc maintains that lead then. He's got a lap to try and build up an advantage to get away from Max Verstappen, who is sticking to him very nicely indeed. Leclerc leads this race from Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. That's the top 5. Liam Lawson has got past Lance Stroll. He's moved up into 12th after starting down in 19th before the safety car. Lewis Hamilton out of this race. First time he's ever failed to finish a race here in Austin. To the back straight we go now. Turn 11, heavy braking zone. You take it in second or third gear depending on your preference. clearance, and Lance Stroll's had a bit of a moment and gone down into 16th place now. Along the back straight we go. Charles Leclerc, bit by bit, edging away from the Red Bull.
Yes, it's the critical then to get him, build himself a lead. And once again, there's a slight gap opening up to Oscar Piastri. I don't know if he's minding his tyres a bit. We're going to be 2, 3, maybe even 4 abreast down here at the back of the field. And that's George Russell, who started in the pit lane, of course.
And because he pitted, Alex Albon is now running almost neck and neck with Esteban Ocon, the guy he hit at turn 1. And Lance Stroll is at the back of this as well. He just has to concede a bit of room, Albon there. Trying to go around the outside is Stroll. He goes off the track, comes back onto the track ahead of Alex Albon. Bit like the Max Verstappen incident that caught your eye, Martin, in the opening stages of this race.
Yeah, except Max was in a different postcode, but Sainz did go off in the same corner as well, did go all 4 wheels off. Leclerc then does a fastest lap of the race on that restart. That's impressive. That's when the tyres are cooled down a little bit and your pressures are a bit lower, but it's given him a 1.2 second gap. He's beyond DRS range at the moment.
Now, just before the safety car came out, we saw Carlos Sainz this restart was originally overtaken by Lawson, then lost a heap of places down the back straight.
I don't think the hard tyre gone backwards. Hamilton went backwards into the gravel trap. The hard tyres are really not giving a lot of purchase out there, although Lawson's doing okay in P12.
And look how the top 3 have moved away from Lando Norris on this particular lap. Further back, here comes Nico Hülkenberg on Fernando Alonso. Hülkenberg up into the top 10. Good pass on Fernando Alonso down at turn 11. Ahead of these two, that's Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull.
And once again, then Piastri, he lost a second, 1.1 last time around to his teammate. He's already 4 or 5 tenths down. He's going to drop quickly off. In fact, he's got Piastri's got Gasly right on his gearbox, so Piastri's got to really find some pace if he wants to stay with the top 4.
Gasly's absolutely loving this weekend here and has finished 6th last year at the Circuit of the Americas, upgraded Alpine, and he's reveling in it. And they really do feel that a top 6 finish is on the cards and possible for them, but they know there's a threat from Haas and from RB and from Perez and the other Red Bull and from Aston Martin too, so it's not going to be easy. And what's not going to be easy for Max Verstappen is keeping Carlos Sainz at bay when he hasn't got an advantage of the DRS to stay within touch of Charles Leclerc. Verstappen's had a good lap though, and he seems to have broken that DRS threat in the last few corners.
Yeah, he took 7 tenths out of Sainz in the first sector alone, did Max Verstappen. So he's punching on and trying to close the gap back down to Leclerc. It's visible, isn't it, the change on that lap?
Absolutely. Lap 8 of this race, and the man who's only led 4 laps in Austin before today, Charles Leclerc, has a 2.5 lead over Max Verstappen.
It does ebb and flow, though, as they deploy plenty of battery on one lap and then have to spend the next lap charge it, extra charging of it. So it does give you a bit of a yo-yo effect. You have to be careful not to react too much to.
And just looking a little bit. Stop race more and more into the equation.
Might well do if they can babysit these tyres when they've got a lot of fuel. And a little replay around the outside, plenty of grip there. Nicely done and very brave.
Remember Valtteri Bottas doing that in a Williams once here in 2013. That was Liam Lawson on this occasion. And that is why Lance Stroll lost a heap of places. He went off into the dirt, and he's also been noted by race control for leaving the track and gaining an advantage where he got past Alex Albon. So whether that gets referred to the stewards or not, I'm not quite sure. We are on lap 9 of this US Grand Prix. Let's head down to Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, lap 9 means we're about 5 laps away from the safety from the pit stop window being open. Now we've had a safety car that might be extended by 3 or 4 team radius.
No power exit of the corners. No power. Copy, we do see no action at the moment. Keep you posted. Yeah, but
Oh,
costing me a lot. I know. Smells like fuel.
it smells like fuel. A fuel
Oh,
leak,
no.
no power.
Well, look how he's dropped back.
Oh, you can't keep him posted if it's a critical failure like this.
Yeah, well, they'll try and find a solution very quickly, Ted, but he wants it even more quickly, and Lando Norris is clearly gaining on Carlos Sainz.
He needs to push the choke in, doesn't he? That's what it is.
And what that means, I was going to say, Martin, is that if Sainz is out, then that's a crucial rear gunner gone out of the way for Leclerc. And it's Verstappen, I think, who might try thinking of an undercut when the pit window opens in a few laps' time. Back to you.
Just heard him on the team radio, Martin, saying it smells like fuel in the car, guys.
He's losing fuel.
Smells a lot like fuel in the car, guys.
That doesn't sound at all good, especially when his team said to him, nothing we can do about it at the moment. So that sounds like a potentially very serious issue coming along for Carlos Sainz.
Very unfortunate for him. His teammate now 3 seconds out in front, and the stewards have decided no further investigation necessary. Lance Stroll and Alex Albon for leaving the track and gaining an advantage.
And of course the first corner incident between, well, non-incident really, but between
Oh, that is Zhou Guan Yu going for a spin, finding no grip whatsoever, and moving from 15th down to 19th and last in this race. Oh dear.
It's a shame for him. There's Russell up to now 15th on those hard tyres, and we've got a little scrap out there. They're not very far apart. Fernando Alonso and Liam Lawson, and they became very bad friends, didn't they, through the qualifying sessions. Fernando getting pretty angry with him. Yeah, that's just
I don't know what happened there.
it spun around. The problem is you got like a pendulum effect. Once you overload the lateral grip of the rear tyre, you get a massive pendulum of the engine, gearbox and all the gubbins behind you. It just wants to overtake you.
George Russell making places up, 15th from a pit lane start, one of those places with his teammate Lewis Hamilton going out. The sort of man that can make a one-stop strategy happen to his advantage, maybe whispering to those tyres already. As Ferrari find the solution, driver default, Delta 16.16, easy to work out, surely.
Yeah, as I say, I had a few laps in one of these last week, and honestly, I could barely look down at the steering wheel, let alone start turning the many dials, many of which have got sub-menus. And how they do that in Monaco or even on a track like this, that impresses me massively, how they can start going into menus on the steering wheel whilst driving at this pace. But they get very good at it, and they practice it a lot on the simulator, or sim as we like to impress ourselves with.
Big lock up there from George Russell going into turn one. The key thing is, though, that having seemingly found a fix here, it's not necessarily hurt Carlos Sainz's pace too much, and Lando Norris is now over 2 seconds back from the podium places. Sainz still within touching distance of Max Verstappen.
Now, as you can see, seems better. Keep hanging there.
It's a fair play to Carlos Sainz for driving through a worrying problem, and now he's got to get after Max.
So it was the smell of fuel that I'm guessing, rather than the feel of fuel, which obviously burns you like crazy, especially in these incredibly thin overalls the drivers wear. But the pace there, this is a big story now. The Ferrari pace is mighty, and only Verstappen really can stay anywhere near it. Norris and Piastri a second a lap slow right now.
Well, 7 seconds the difference between Charles Leclerc in first and Lando Norris in fourth. 9.5 seconds back to Oscar Piastri in fifth. McLaren saying that this is not a great track for them. It's not a track that really suits their car. A lot of kind of heavy braking into slow corners, which is not, they say, the strengths of that McLaren car this year, and there are quite a few of those corners, and that's what's been borne out so far on this sunny afternoon here at the Circuit of the Americas. Those hard compound tyres might not have been working for Lance Stroll and not working a huge amount for George Russell. Doing all right for Liam Lawson at the moment. On his return to Formula One and replacing Daniel Ricciardo for the rest of the season, he's already up now into 11th place.
And he just passed Alonso on this lap, and there it is. Yeah, slipstreaming down the straight, kept it all under control, got the nose into the apex, hit the loud pedal, and a very clean pass. Fernando having a look down the inside that was only going to ever make his tyres a little bit dirty. So this is exactly the kind of performance Lawson needs to put in, and if he does, I can see him as Verstappen's teammate next year at Red Bull. If he drives and really outperforms this car, because you know Sergio's down there in 9th. Sergio should be steaming through Tsunoda, Magnussen and Gasly.
But he's not, and it's not the first race that that's happened either. The interesting thing here, now Lawson has got past Alonso.
Feedback on plan A, please.
Ambitious.
So this was plan A, a one-stop for Oscar Piastri, I wonder. And now Lawson's past Alonso. If it gets past Hülkenberg, Sergio Perez is the next driver on the track, and then Red Bull have got some comparison to make, haven't they, between the two drivers?
If plan A stands for ambitious, what would plan B stand for, do you think? Brilliant?
Brave? Balderdash? I don't know. Anthony Davidson, what have you got for us?
Yes, speaking of plan A, Ferrari seem like they're sticking to plan A for Leclerc. They've asked him how his tyres feel. He says they're good, they're happy with his tyre management. Meanwhile, further down, we're riding on board with George Russell there. They're telling him to look after the rear of his tyres from overheating, not graining like Hamilton suffered with in yesterday's sprint race. So yeah, George hoping to make a bit more progress than he currently is, but still having to manage the rear tyre temperatures. So yeah, they're getting close to the zone now though, where they're starting to think about strategy and starting to think about how far they can push these tyres into the race.
Yeah, our information today was if you can go to round about lap 15, you're committing to a two-stopper if you come in between 15 and 25. After that, a one-stop is possible if you get to lap 26 out.
Yeah, meanwhile, Norris has been on the radio to his engineer. He was asked about the tyres and the pace, and he said, tyres are okay, the pace isn't good enough.
And that is the worry. Whatever the driver can do, it's not going to be enough, and the pace just isn't good enough. Is George Russell going to make a move here on Valtteri Bottas? Down the turn,
if you keep this gap to Verstappen, we are happy with plan A. Our baseline is still plan B.
Yeah, I want probably plan B also.
To stop, presumably.
Yeah, and would C be, well, it's, when do you put the hard on? When do you put the medium on? And is the soft tyre an option? Probably not. George Russell had that move on Valtteri Bottas. He's up into 14th place. Well, they'll be looking, won't they, at Ferrari and at Red Bull as well, these hard compound tyre runners, to see how these tyres are holding up as we get towards the pit stop window.
Ferrari has been very strong on these medium compound tyres all through the event, must be said. So I would imagine they want to hang on to them as long as they can, but the undercut, as it's called, and Leclerc now 5.5 seconds clear, which is the sort of performance...
Max heads up, found a bit of an issue with the car this stint. Hopefully we'll sort it out at the stop. So just hang on in there the best you can this stint.
Wow, sounds like a slightly longer pit stop than normal then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But this is the way Leclerc's just driving off at the front, is the way Norris did in Singapore and Zandvoort, for example. Leclerc in a great zone out there.
And the worry, I think, for Red Bull, not just the issue on Max Verstappen's car, whatever it is, and whether they can fix it and how much time it might cost them to fix it, but just looking there, as George Russell easily gets past Franco Colapinto and moves up into 13th. If it stays like this, Ferrari are right on Red Bull's tail in the Constructors' Championship, and that defence of the championship for the champions might turn into 3rd place by the time we get to Abu Dhabi. That is a very poor season.
Yeah, we've been saying for a while, it's to an extent, it's telling that McLaren, probably their biggest rival for the Constructors' title, could well be Ferrari in the closing stages. Ted has news.
Just looking down the pit lane towards Red Bull. No sort of signs of concern on the pit wall. Just wondering what that could be. The problem with Verstappen's car that they could fix in a pit stop. Maybe having to top up the engine air system. That only takes a couple of seconds. Maybe some debris in the radiators. But we haven't seen Verstappen have to cool the car. The only other radio message he's being told is about holding 6th gear through a couple of corners, but that's not, if you've got a gearbox problem, Martin, that's not something you can fix in a pit stop. So I'll keep my beady eye on it when he does eventually come in for a pit stop.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you very much indeed. So Leclerc 6 seconds out in front. Carlos Sainz in third place at the moment. Just to let you know, that move, George Russell on Valtteri Bottas, when Russell moved up into what was 14th at the time, is under investigation for forcing another driver off the track. The stewards are going to carry on the way they've started here. I wouldn't expect anything to come of that, because we've seen 2 incidents a bit like that and nothing doing in terms of any penalties being given. But we'll keep you up to date. We're on lap 15 of 56, and 19 are running here. The one that is out is Lewis Hamilton, who never previously failed to finish a race in the USA in his career. So that's 1 in Las Vegas, 3 in Miami, 11 in Austin and 1 in Indianapolis, and sadly lasted only 2 laps here today. And as I say, if the stewards are going to be carrying on the way they left off with the other 2 incidents, there'll be no penalty for George Russell. Up pops up a 5-second penalty for George Russell, Martin, for forcing another driver off the track.
Yeah, well, they've got some regulations, some defined regulations on where you must be relative to the other car. It depends if you're going up the inside or the outside, but I think it's virtually impossible to overtake in that situation, because all the driver you're overtaking is you nail him, you don't lock your wheels up, you make the apex, you take the racing line. If he just runs off the track, you're going to get a 5-second penalty.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, here we go. George Russell, when's he ahead? When's he ahead? There. And he's...
Yeah.
Well, he's already ahead of Valtteri.
So if Valtteri had chosen to get out of it, but so you can basically almost ensure your rival gets a penalty with those rules.
Valtteri Bottas pits for a new set on hard compound tyre. It's a bit of a head scratcher, because Lance Stroll went off the track and Alex Albon didn't get a penalty.
Yeah.
Exactly the same corner, and it looked like the same incident, but...
Yeah, but that's how the rules are written at the moment, and if you're going around the outside, well, good luck to you.
So, George, we got a 5-second penalty for forcing Valtteri off the track.
What?
Yeah.
That might be under discussion, along with language and press conferences, the next time the drivers get together for their GPDA meeting, of which George Russell will be in the senior chair for.
Yeah. I think I'd park the car and go home, to be honest.
It's a long way to go. Fernando Alonso is next on the grid. He's just got to build a 5-second gap then to wherever he is aiming to finish, and try and stay in the points, which go down to 10th, and Nico Hülkenberg is in the points, and Sergio Perez is just ahead of him, and Liam Lawson is just behind Nico Hülkenberg, and Lawson is about 4.5 seconds behind Sergio Perez.
Total joke, George, with the penalty. Total joke.
Toto speaks. It's Toto.
I'm not going to... So the start of the back straight, and that was enough with DRS to get past the RB. Nice one, Sergio. Time to now chase after Kevin Magnussen now, but that move has been brewing for a while. Perez couldn't make it before lap 18 of this race.
Yeah, Red Bull desperately needs Sergio Perez to get up into a more significant point-scoring position there, and hopefully hunting down Piastri and Norris a little bit later on in the Grand Prix.
He learned well from yesterday there, Sergio Perez. Didn't Tsunoda kind of dive bomb him at turn 15? Well, he learned on this particular occasion how to protect that corner. More George Russell action for you, ladies and gentlemen. Fernando Alonso had given that one up a long time before they got to the braking zone, and both drivers stayed on the track as George made his way up into 12th. That is Kevin Magnussen. Very fast out lap, so that when your opponent decides to come into the pits and cover you off, he's not going to be able to, because you've gone significantly quicker. That is strong here. And Magnussen has set off what could be a bit of a chain reaction here.
Yeah, it could release Perez into some fresh air, but yeah, that's going to catch Alpine and Pierre Gasly's attention. That's a great chance there for an undercut and running up there as they were in 6th and 7th.
Yeah, there was about 2 seconds advantage for Gasly as we watch Hulkenberg on Tsunoda, whose tyres, I assume, are going off somewhat here. That's very nicely done by Nico Hulkenberg. He's got wheel-to-wheel with Tsunoda, has to just concede through turn 13, but he's going to keep fighting this one here and getting caught up in the turbulent wake. It is a fight. Tsunoda moves over. They almost make contact. Round the outside goes Hulkenberg. Off the track goes Hulkenberg. Back on it again, still behind the RB. But this fight is still going on. Hulkenberg tries to slot in behind the rear wing of the RB in front. It's a terrific tussle.
Great racing, but Tsunoda pits.
So Tsunoda pits as Kevin Magnussen on his outlap, and Pierre Gasly now pits to cover off that threat from Kevin Magnussen. So this is a battle for potentially 6th place in the race here, which would mean a lot to Alpine, because the way it's standing at the moment, they could leapfrog Williams in the Constructors' Championship. Magnussen's heading down the straight while we watch the RB of Tsunoda and his pit stop. Towards turn 1 goes Kevin Magnussen. I want to see if Pierre Gasly is out ahead of him or not. He's not. The undercut has worked for Kevin Magnussen, and clever strategy down at Haas. They've got ahead of the Alpine driver.
By miles, actually. He was 2.1 adrift last time I looked, so that is super powerful, isn't it? Get in earlier than your rival in terms of the undercut, as you were explaining, David.
Yeah, and while all that's happening, serenely out in front, Charles Leclerc continues on his way, building up a really, really handy gap here to Max Verstappen.
And the good thing for Leclerc with that gap is he doesn't have to react to, he's got a lap or two in his pocket in terms of reacting to an undercut. Ted?
So down at Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, 8 seconds now the gap. Absolutely brilliant first stint for Charles Leclerc. And I tell you what, they're thinking, I can see some mechanics starting to twitch some airlines and pit stop equipment down at Ferrari. I think they might be thinking about an undercut attempt on Max Verstappen by Carlos Sainz. Max is struggling with the tyres. I think Sainz might think about an early stop here. Let's see whether they pull him in a couple of laps.
And we have to keep an eye on the Verstappen pit stop. They say they're going to fix something at the stop, and I can't believe that won't cost a little bit of time somewhere, Ted.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we're just approaching now the pit stop window, and yeah, I can't see any movement yet, but I'll let you know, give you a shout when it does.
And curiously, both McLarens are now on front-running pace, but they're 13 and 17 seconds off the lead. But starting to, in the mid-39s now, they've both just done a personal best. They're on personal best sectors as well. So as if McLaren are really sort of coming awake in this phase of the Grand Prix.
And that's not the first time you've ever said that this season. Towards the end of a stint, the McLaren does preserve its tyres quite well, and it does come alive a little bit. Question for you. Max Verstappen's issue, do you reckon that's just the front wing not being set at the right flap angle?
Possibly, and they'll give a tweak of the front wing anyway when they change compound as a standard procedure. So if that's the case, if it is just literally, we think we've got the wrong front wing setting on or something, anything else would take an age, you know, if he's got any kind of hydraulic issue or whatever. So yeah, and in that case, it won't really slow the pit stop down. That's normal procedure.
1:39.7 for Charles Leclerc on his last lap as he completes lap 20 of this 56-lap race. It was a 1:39.9 for Max Verstappen and a 1:39.8 for Carlos Sainz, who's a second and a half now behind Max Verstappen.
Tyres still feel quite good, and the grinding's cleared a bit.
That's interesting. That's why the McLaren are coming strongly. They've gone through the graining phase, and they get rid of all that sort of rubber off that, as Ted describes it, at the end of a pencil eraser where the rubber just rips. You can start working your way through that, and that explains why both McLarens have just, to an extent, come alive.
I wonder if Carlos Sainz might be thinking of a pit stop soon to try and undercut Max Verstappen. High threat of an undercut if he wanted to pit now. Kevin Magnussen has pitted. He's come out behind Alex Albon, who pitted an awful lot earlier in this race. Is Magnussen going for it into turn 1? No, he's not. Lance Stroll is the car ahead of these two, still running the hard tyres that he started the race on. Magnussen pitted 3 laps ago for these tyres. Alex Albon has been running these medium tyres for 17 laps. He pitted early to change some tyres after he hit Esteban Ocon at turn 1 and sent the Alpine spinning around. And later on, at the end of lap 2, Lewis Hamilton went out of this race, and that's why we've only got 19 cars running, not 20, on lap 21 of 56.
And George Russell closing in on Liam Lawson for 8th place, and there it is.
George Russell and Liam Lawson, Mercedes against RB, Mercedes wins out.
And of course, when George pits, Sainz goes for the undercut on Verstappen. Then when George pits, they'll have to not touch the car for 5 seconds before they start working on it.
Yes, with that 5-second penalty. Now this is Ferrari having the strategic luxury of pitting Carlos Sainz first to stick a set of hard tyres on and try and get past Max Verstappen with a decent outlap, and by the time Verstappen responds, he can't quite cover off the threat.
Now, how good is a Ferrari on hard compound tyres? We're about to find out. He should be able to get out and not have any interference from Verstappen's teammate, Sergio Perez there, and that works out for him in that respect. So Perez can't come into play with that strategy from Ferrari against his teammate Verstappen.
And the thing is that Charles Leclerc has a healthy enough lead here that anything Carlos Sainz does with this undercut attempt, if it comes off, is not going to interfere with Charles Leclerc leading this race by the time he pits. But it is going to interfere with Max Verstappen if this lap is good enough. Now, Kevin Magnussen and Alex Albon, we saw earlier Verstappen, Magnussen thinking against a move into turn 1, and he's gone off the track there with Albon getting his elbows out in defence. Later on, Magnussen does manage to force his way past the Williams.
And that's the move that Lando Norris covered off yesterday in the sprint, isn't it? But Magnussen using it as an attacking position today.
Here comes Franco Colapinto on Fernando Alonso, least experienced, most experienced. The Williams wins out. Colapinto moves himself up into 10th place, and we have seen a number of overtakes from Franco Colapinto in his races so far in Formula 1, and that's another decent one up against, well, Fernando Alonso is struggling on the fringes of the top 10. Neither of these two have pitted yet. The Aston Martin seemingly once again brings an upgrade to the track, and the pace just isn't there. And let's go down to 2
So Lando, from our side, we appear to have a lower deg than the 2 cars ahead, so we might just look to try and extend past them. From your side, how are the tyres? How's the pace?
Yeah, I'm pacey right now. I've been for a while.
Certainly got pace on Max Verstappen in this phase. Anthony, to you.
Yeah, so I was just listening to that message myself when you came to me, Crofty. So interesting from McLaren, as you suggested earlier on, Martin, that McLaren's pace looks pretty good and their longevity of the tyres coming into their own now. So they're going to try and obviously elongate their stints over others around them. Speaking of that, Lawson, for those of you interested in his race, his return to that team, replacing...
Don't leave me out for too long, I don't want to be under pressure.
Yeah, good radio message from Leclerc. Obviously he doesn't want to be under pressure. He's doing a brilliant job at the moment in nursing those tyres. But you don't want to be under pressure from others coming at you if they're out of sync with your strategy. And that brings me on to Lawson. For those of you interested, now he's getting on. They're just sticking to his plan. He's getting lots of advice from his engineer, Pierre Hamlin, and he's doing a great job keeping the tyres in good shape as we're now watching the onboard of Kevin Magnussen in this scrap for the Aston Martin. Back to you, Coffee.
So what do we think? What did Lando mean there? As we see again, up the inside.
Magnussen on Stroll, getting up to 13.
Yeah. When Lando said I've been pacing for a while, does he mean I've been managing the pace or I've been getting on with it for a while, do you think? I'm not quite sure I understand what that message is. So as Sainz does the fastest lap of the Grand Prix.
I think it means the pace has been 0. I'm not happy with this pace at the moment. It's kind of what I took from that. Carlos Sainz has just set the new fastest lap of the race. No surprise there, because he'd been into the pits. Verstappen didn't try and cover it off at Red Bull straight away and carries on for that little bit longer. No further investigation. The Albon Magnussen incident for Albon forcing Magnussen off the track, and the gap out in front is now over to 10 seconds. And this, Martin, as we get towards half-race distance, this is Ferrari total domination out in front.
It is, isn't it? That means he's probably got another 3. He's saying, don't put me under pressure. They'll be watching Sainz. He's now 28 seconds behind, but pitted much earlier. So basically Charles Leclerc, do not put me wheel to wheel with anybody, including Carlos Sainz, my teammate, when you pit me. So they'll keep an eye on that because Sainz is gaining at a second a lap.
People might be surprised that Verstappen is still out there and didn't pit straight away, but I just wonder if it's a case of...
How many more laps can you do at this pace? Question.
I'm okay like this, but let's focus on Prix.
The questions and answers go on at every team, including Ferrari, of course. I just wonder if it's a case of had Verstappen pitted straight away to cover off Sainz, then even if he'd have got back out in front of him, Sainz would have been straight in DRS range and would have easily passed Verstappen anyway, so they're having to think about a longer-term strategy. Ted, down to you.
Well, you're spot on, Crofty. They have to, because after the first lap where Verstappen didn't pit, then Sainz had already undercut him. I've been looking at the numbers and crunching them as it happened. So Sainz would now be a few seconds ahead of Verstappen if Verstappen pitted now. So I think with these plan C's, team...
Left-hand side tyres are really bad now.
Okay, copy that, Max. Thank you.
So the two benefits of just waiting, like Verstappen is, like Leclerc is, that it brings the one stop into question. You know, you could do a one stop. No one was really saying it's a particularly quick way of doing the race today, but it is possible, and possibly hanging out for a safety car that could mean the difference between winning the race or not. But I'm kind of surprised not to see Charles Leclerc. I get the feeling, don't you, Crofty? Leclerc wants to come in, but they're saying just stay out. 11 seconds the lead over Verstappen.
Norris now just 3 seconds and looking up the road. Max Verstappen, his championship rival. This is suddenly coming back to McLaren nicely.
Red Bull are getting ready for Max Verstappen to come in, and he's being told to make his move, and there it is. Into the pits then comes Max Verstappen. He lost 6/10 to Lando Norris on the previous lap, and Lando Norris carried on in the mid-139s on lap 25. Tyres change then for Max Verstappen. On go the hard compound tyres as he makes his way at 80 kilometres an hour towards the pit lane exit. Carlos Sainz is accelerating up to about 200 miles an hour down the main straight. Here comes Carlos Sainz. He pitted earlier than Max Verstappen, and to the cheers of the fans up at turn 1, goes into the first corner ahead of Max Verstappen in what is a net second place in this race.
It is. His tyres are 4 laps older. Does that matter on the hard compound? We're about to find out.
So the undercut from Ferrari, who are the ones with pace here, has left Carlos Sainz ahead of Max Verstappen. His Ferrari power, Kevin Magnussen on the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, and then a more regulation overtake down at turn 12. Magnussen up to 12. Free air for Lando Norris here. How much longer can he carry on at this pace? And this pace is good. A 1:39.3 on the last lap of Carlos Sainz. He's just switched on to the hard tyres, some new hard tyres. Norris did a 1:39.6. These have been very good laps.
Yeah, so McLaren might be able to recover this then with some longevity. And as Leclerc pits from the lead.
So I think McLaren, aided by a few laps under the safety car, are going to be doing a one-stop strategy here, which is going to be really interesting. They haven't got the pace to do a two-stopper like some of the others and get past them, so they're going to try and do it with a strategy. Charles Leclerc, hard tyres go on for our race leader. He is going to come out behind both of the McLarens and ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz.
But pitting on lap 27, that's a one-stopper anyway onto hard tyres, is it not?
Well, it can be. If you go to lap 26 and then pit beyond that, you are looking at a one-stop strategy, was the information that we were given before this race. Lando Norris now leads it. His teammate Oscar Piastri is second because neither of the McLarens have pitted yet. Charles Leclerc is third, and his 3 cars all in a bit of a huddle together. On the inside, Lance Stroll. On the outside is Alex Albon. Behind these comes Pierre Gasly, and Alex Albon gets ahead of Lance Stroll, I should say, in the Aston Martin. Gasly is just tucked up behind these lot, and since his pit stop, has just come out into a heap of trouble.
This track really promotes great side-by-side Formula 1 racing, doesn't it?
just watch him through turn 1 here. Gasly on the inside might fancy his chances getting down the hill, but no. Lance Stroll is ahead of Alex Albon, back up into 13th, and Gasly is going to have to stay behind him. Anthony Davidson, you've been monitoring the team radio here. Explain what's been happening to Pierre Gasly.
I have, yeah, and you picked it up, Crofty, that it just hasn't seemed like the same car since he changed tyres, this hard compound that he's currently on. He's been moaning about a lack of front end consistently since switching to these tyres. So there's something for us to watch out for as well, for others doing their pit stops and changing compounds. It can often change the balance of the car for the better, or in Pierre Gasly's case, sadly, for the worse.
Yeah, it does. We do get that from time to time. So let's try and put you in the picture as we just see what happens into turn 11. Alex Albon probably a bit too far back to make the move, but all concertina together. Your front two on the medium tyres, Norris and Piastri, they haven't pitted as yet. Charles Leclerc has, as is Sainz and Verstappen, and Hülkenberg still to pit, running in 6th. Oh, he is pitting now.
But Norris and Piastri doing 39.0s now. That's good. That's a good lap time. It matches Verstappen on his fresh tyres. So this trouble is they've got such a deficit to make up, McLaren, haven't they? But they can really do some damage in this phase.
Gasly's just overtaken the Williams there, and it looked like he was off the track when he did it. So whether the stewards will give another 5-second penalty, we wait and see. Hülkenberg pits to try and come out ahead of Pierre Gasly, who's now got ahead then of Alex Albon, and that's a really, really important move. But Hülkenberg comes out for Haas ahead of the Alpine. So it hasn't gone right for Pierre Gasly in this next phase of the race, as Lance Stroll pits for Aston Martin. Who's still to pit? Esteban Ocon, Franco Colapinto, Liam Lawson, George Russell, and Norris and Piastri. And this looked like it was off the track, Martin. Let's have another look. Yep.
Sure was. Yeah, you're obliged to give that straight back.
Now, he's apparently on the radio complaining that he got pushed off. I've seen pushes, but that didn't. It was a gentle nudge, if anything else.
It's a bit like when you were stealing apples as a kid, isn't it? Yeah.
There you go, Sergio Perez. Yeah, Sergio Perez on Nico Hülkenberg, on Kevin Magnussen for 9th place in this race, and he's made that one stick quite nicely. Now, Charles Leclerc's getting his tyres warmed up nicely here. He was a second a lap quicker than Oscar Piastri on the last lap, and he is getting very, very close now to Piastri. But this McLaren pace, Martin, on these tyres, it is impressive.
It's certainly helping.
More phase 1 brake release for turn 1. Turn 1, more phase 1 brake release. I don't know what that means.
Well, it means more phase 1 brake release.
Right.
So does that mean
more phase 1 brake release?
Get off the brakes a bit earlier?
In other words, yeah, come off the brakes earlier. I would have thought, but then if Carlos Sainz doesn't know, then I certainly don't. What was I about to say? Yeah, Norris and Piastri are certainly bringing them back into play a little bit, and they're reasonably close together as well. Let's see how they go on the hard compound tyre, but this. Well, I know what I was about to say. Norris has just had his first warning for track limits. You're allowed 3 before you get a black and white flag, as Pierre Gasly has just done for track limits. Next time up, you'll get a 5-second penalty.
Where do we think Lando Norris might pit in this race? Now they've committed to a one-stop strategy, and who else might be on a one-stop around them? Verstappen could go to the end, Leclerc could go to the end, Sainz might have to do a 2-stop strategy, because he pitted that bit earlier. Carlos Sainz pitting on lap 21.
I think while the car's working so well and they're kind of matching the leaders, what they're trying to do is give themselves an offset, as it's known, and some fresher tyres.
Okay, Lando, so for us, this is likely the Germany situation, but we don't want to pull the trigger too soon if we don't have to. Every lap is tyre delta.
Did he say the Germany situation?
They hadn't had a German race for ages.
Well, he's not going to lose on penalties. That seems to be the English way of doing the German situation when it comes to sport.
Yes. I don't know. It'll be a lap. Where did they lose? They lost in Monza, didn't they?
Yeah.
When the Ferrari one stop and caught everybody out. But
Charles Leclerc on that particular
absolutely.
day. So as it stands at the moment, if you lose 20 seconds, Norris pits, he comes out behind Verstappen, Piastri has to pit as well, and it then goes back to how it was. Except Carlos Sainz might have to stop twice in this race. And by running a longer strategy, they've probably helped themselves to maybe one place by the end of it. All I'm sure is being discussed by people a lot cleverer and a lot more often than myself at McLaren Mission Control.
Well, Sainz is obviously hanging on to a clear catching both McLarens, but let's remember, Sainz pitted on lap 21. It's a long time ago in Formula One tyre terms. So this is buying McLaren an offset where they should have much better tyres in the closing stages of the Grand Prix.
And how long can Oscar Piastri hold up Charles Leclerc? Because Leclerc is now right on him in the battle for second place. And he might be arriving at just the right time here to just hang on about 6/10 of a second back until they get to turn 11, get decent traction out of it, use the DRS down the back straight. That might be good timing for the race leader to not get held up too much.
Yeah, so Norris and Piastri losing a second a lap now to Sainz and Verstappen. So I'm imagining they're going to pull the pin soon on getting fresh tyres on those two McLarens. Especially if Piastri can hold Leclerc up for a little while, although not entirely sure they're in Leclerc's race now anymore.
No, and look at this, the pace difference that DRS will give you, an extra 20 kilometres an hour difference by the time they get to the end of the straight. Piastri's not really racing against Charles Leclerc, and he doesn't necessarily make it that difficult for Charles Leclerc to get past, and the man who is essentially the net race leader of this race moves up into second overall, now just over 4 seconds behind Lando Norris.
Yeah, it's time to pit. It's time to pit the McLarens, is it not, Zach?
You're correct, Mark.
As is often the case, Zach. What's been the thinking behind this, what they call strategy offset, leaving your drivers out there that little bit longer?
Yeah, we want to see if we can get a little bit of tire delta for the end of the race. I think car came alive there a little bit, but time to pit, and here we are.
When you say tire delta at the end of the race, is that picking off maybe a Carlos Sainz by the end of it, or a Max Verstappen? What's your simulations telling you here?
Well, we'd like to try and get both. I still think Leclerc's in a race of his own, but I think Sainz and Verstappen are possibly within range. We'll have to see how these hard tires do here the second part of the race.
So you've obviously worked through the grading of the mediums, but what are the drivers saying about the car? Because this is not the car that dominated in Singapore, is it?
No, they've not said much. Data looks okay. It looks like as we got through the grading there, the cars were okay. So I think it's going to be a tough slug to get them, but I think we're doing everything we can to give us our best shot.
Zach, thanks ever so much indeed. Great to have your company with us this weekend. Lap 32 of 56 then. Charles Leclerc is back out in the lead of this race. Lando Norris pitted, leaving Oscar Piastri to still pit in the race. George Russell hasn't pitted yet, neither has Liam Lawson. Esteban Ocon was another one that hadn't pitted. He now comes in, as you saw, to make his stop. Russell in 6th, Lawson in 7th, hoping for a safety car, I would imagine. Safety car would do them very nicely at this stage of the race.
So Norris then with a 6-lap tyre advantage over Verstappen and a 10-lap tyre advantage over Carlos Sainz. 4 or 5 laps actually even on Leclerc. Will that pay any dividends? But what he can do now, as long as he doesn't grain them up in the early phases, the fuel load's going down, we're well past halfway point. He can get out and thrash that McLaren as hard as it'll go.
Ted Kravitz, to you.
Oscar Piastri pits, and it's about half a second longer than it needed to be. There was a problem on the right-hand side of the car. Just you'll get a time on it, Crofty. Tell me what it is when it comes out. It felt about 2.8, 2.9.
You're good.
What was it?
It was 2.6 and 4/10 slower than Lando Norris.
With VAT, you're absolutely right,
It was a little slow. But anyway, listen, they're on their way. So I think we can, listen, McLaren pit wall, they're all about science, aren't they? But this is more like something out of the movies. The Germany situation. Papaya rules. Trust just the car. You know, they're really getting dramatic, aren't they, on the McLaren pit wall? But it is just about being fast at the end of the race. Fast enough, as Zach says, to beat Leclerc? Probably not. But they're well and truly behind Max Verstappen now. Let's see what this next stint brings.
Leaving the track and gaining an advantage, a 5-second time penalty for Pierre Gasly.
Slam dunk, that one, wasn't it? But as we've said before, sometimes you're better to get the move done, get off down the road and soak up 5 seconds.
He's already, Pierre Gasly, 2.3 seconds ahead, or 2.1 seconds ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah, wasn't it meant to be like a 10-second penalty to try and stop drivers doing that? That was certainly being discussed.
Yeah, it was, you're right.
So here's a battle that we didn't think we'd see today.
Okay, Lando, your tyre advantage on Verstappen is 6 laps, and on Sainz is 10 laps. Sainz had to push his quite hard to try and undercut.
That's one of the reasons McLaren think he might be a bit vulnerable by the end here. 11 seconds separates the top 3. Leclerc now from Carlos Sainz, who undercut Verstappen to take that second place. Fastest lap goes to Lando Norris so far. His teammate Oscar Piastri will cross the line just ahead of George Russell. And well, Russell will stick to him as long as he possibly can, but I'm sure George Russell wouldn't mind a pit stop soon.
Yeah, indeed. Norris, though, is 6.4 behind Verstappen, so let's remember that on lap 34. 6.4 seconds adrift. That's his championship rival. Even if he could pass him and finish third, it would still be a good day out for him.
Anthony.
Yeah, so we're just talking about George Russell. The one-stoppers, basically, they're due to come in anytime soon. So the ones we're focusing on there for the ones of Russell and Liam Lawson, they're doing a fantastic job, and they're going to be fighting Pierre Gasly. So it's around that position that they're looking for. Gasly's been warned on the radio. We're trying to keep Lawson out of our pit window.
Thank you very much. If, by the way, if George Russell pitted now, he would come back out in the points still, ahead of Hulkenberg and behind Kevin Magnussen. You know, Derek Warwick said he wanted a really, really quiet afternoon when he spoke to you on the grid, the driver steward here this weekend, Martin. Well, there's another investigation with the stewards, Tsunoda and Albon this time.
Yeah, hope he hasn't got an early plane this evening.
Here comes Sergio Perez on Franco Colapinto. And Franco is another one that hasn't pitted as yet. Sergio behind him, who's been running these hard tyres for the past 7 laps.
I must go and introduce myself to Franco. He looked at me like I was trying to mug him on the grid or something.
My mate Peter said that was a new Martin Brundle meme and was comedy gold.
I think he thought I was trying to steal his umbrella, to be honest. But I'll go and say hello to him.
The thing is, he's fast. We've seen that he's fast, and more seriously, we've seen that he's fast on 4 wheels. I think he's been a brilliant addition to this Williams team.
He's driven beautifully. And I like a lot of these F2 boys. They're in the last chance saloon of F2. They learn to overtake any which way at any time. They're adventurous with their overtaking, and they're not shy at all to throw the cars about.
Now, Franco Colapinto is keeping Sergio Perez at bay here, and yeah, Perez, we say it from time to time, Martin, he doesn't get overtakes done quickly. In the same car as his teammate Max Verstappen, it seems to take him a few laps longer to try and get these overtakes done. And all the while that Colapinto is holding up Perez here, that is allowing George Russell to keep on extending a little advantage over Perez. And it's going to be tight when he pits, shall we say, for maybe 9th place there.
And Norris just took a second out of Verstappen on the previous lap, so that's something to... And on this lap, is 8/10 up already on Verstappen is Lando Norris. He's flying along.
And another penalty, 5 seconds to Yuki Tsunoda for forcing another driver off the track, and another corner goes by, and Sergio Perez is still stuck behind the rear wing of Franco Colapinto. So, 5.5 seconds at the end of lap 35 is now, with another fastest lap of this race for Lando Norris, 4.3 seconds behind Max Verstappen. Colapinto still keeps Sergio Perez at bay.
Yeah, and Colapinto giving him plenty of space because he couldn't quite work out where he was. And as I say, I know how hard that is, having driven one. You just don't have, it's so hard to know exactly where in your 3/4 where another driver is. So just turn in anyway, let them sort it out, I guess, is what you have to do. But Norris then taking 1.1 out on that lap in the end, down to 4.3. 2 laps later, it was 6.4, wasn't it? Well, last time I mentioned it.
And another corner goes by, and this time with DRS again, and Sergio Perez can't get past the Williams, and here goes Fernando Alonso behind Valtteri Bottas, switching one way and the other, and before making the move. 14th place, that particular scrap. Meanwhile, this penalty here, Alex Albon and Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah, well, there you go. That's the stewards have been consistent ever since they pulled up George Russell for that one.
But you see what I mean? If you just hang on in there and run a little bit off the track, you get your rival a penalty with that set of rules, basically, because you have got an option to yield when you're
Yeah, these tires is not good. I can't brake. I can't attack anything.
Well, that cheering the McLaren pit wall up a tree.
All weekend long, Max Verstappen has been looking happy and saying that the car feels better and not bouncing around. There's no kangaroo movements anymore, and he won the sprint race. And then we get to the Grand Prix, and he puts on the hard tyres, and suddenly it's all at sea again. And to try and explain that, Martin, we'll probably need another 56 laps on top of this.
Probably. Liam Lawson's coming in this lap. He's in a big old fight with that sort of midfield, tail end of the point scoring situations in this lap, we believe. And he's done well to get those tyres that far. And this is his reward. A brand new set of, what were they?
Medium tyres. He's going to be so racy towards the end of this Grand Prix, is Liam Lawson. And if you are the likes of Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Gasly and his teammate Tsunoda, Lawson's probably going to be coming at you towards the end of this.
Yeah, he's driving beautifully. It went a little bit too long in his pit box. He'll have to sharpen that up, but he's just back, and there he is ahead of his teammate, and very fresh tyres.
Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda is now behind Liam Lawson. Remember, Lawson in the first part of qualifying yesterday set the 3rd fastest lap at one stage, and just to show exactly what he could do before he took that grid penalty.
Yeah, and his teammate pitted on lap 18, 19 laps ago, so that's the tyre advantage Lawson's going to have here. He should be flying along now.
5 races last season, Liam Lawson, and he picked up 2 points for that 9th place in Singapore, and he is a real talent in Formula 1. And we go from Liam Lawson to the Sergio Perez saga continuing, and finally there is an ending for Sergio Perez that is going to be a little bit happier. Franco Colapinto hasn't pitted yet, has now been overtaken by Sergio Perez, who pitted 10 laps ago.
Yeah, he hung Colapinto out to dry around the outside and took the position, and away he goes. But it cost him a lot of time, didn't it, following the Williams, as you said.
How does this happen?
Well, he's driven really, really well on a one-stop strategy, Yuki, I'm afraid, and you know, you kind of got bogged down in a few scraps that might not have been your fault as well, but that's the answer. I think it is.
And we've got a list of who's got 5-second penalties yet to serve. There's quite a few of them, aren't there? And Russell, when he pits, he's got a nasty pit stop, hasn't he? He's got the 5-second to serve with that one.
Tell me how this happened.
Yeah, Yuki, the overcut was more powerful than expected, and we picked up a 5 seconds penalty for forcing Albon off the track. We're still discussing.
And Liam Lawson was also about 4/10 of a lap quicker on older tyres as well. Ted, down to you.
I've got George, Yuki and Gasly for the 5 seconds still to be served. You got any more, Crossy?
Run out of room to make notes.
15%.
Steaming down here. But yeah, I mean, the other thing about Lawson, of course, is that he's on the nice tyre now. I mean, this hard tyre has been sort of panned by anyone who's driving on it. It's Sergio Perez saying he's got no traction. Max saying the car doesn't work very well. So people aren't liking this hard tyre despite the conditions. So anyone who's going to go to the medium now, like Liam Lawson, like George Russell, even though he's got to sit there for 5 seconds first, might be looking pretty towards the end of the race.
Norris now 2.7 seconds down from that 6.4 and catching rapidly, and he can see his rival very comfortably now, can Lando Norris. This is important for the championship for both drivers, but of course, you know, it does look as if Ferrari have got it nicely covered out front.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz, though, is starting to get a bit more interested with Charles Leclerc. The gap's down to about 6.5 seconds. And Sainz on the last lap, about 0.4 of a second faster than Charles Leclerc. Ferrari 1-2, their last 1-2 finish in the US. 2006.
Box, Kev, box. You must box now. Box, box.
Oh, what has happened to Kevin Magnussen? Having to come into the pits. And I wonder, did something get stuck there in the radiators? Was it a tear-off strip that they had to clear before it overheated?
Good thought, either that or a puncture, I would say, that they're seeing. So, but something like that, isn't it? Because he's on his merry way.
And he's going to get quite racy on the new set of medium tyres as well between now and the end of this race. And comes out Kevin Magnussen down in 13th now, which puts Liam Lawson already up into the points. And yes, he's got a bit of a gap to go on the cars in front of him. He's got a new set of tyres in which to do it. Lawson up in the 10th because he'd already got past Pierre Gasly. He's one of the few drivers in the midfield without the 5-second penalty as well.
This time.
Charles
nice.
Leclerc responds to Carlos Sainz by setting the new fastest lap of the race. Just in case Carlos was thinking, well, I might be able to close up just that little bit more. Leclerc's like, no, I'd like this one, thank you very much indeed.
Norris only took 3/10 out of Verstappen on that lap, so that's just evening out a little bit. But he's still edging towards it, dropped Piastri by 7 seconds. What are the big fights going on out there at the moment? Hulkenberg was right behind Magnussen, but Magnussen pitted, so that's kind of sorted that one out. And you've got, Lawson, Gasly, Tsunoda, all quite close together.
Franco Colapinto finally gets rid of a set of tyres that he's had on from the start of this race, makes his stop and will come out hopefully for Williams strategy engineers ahead of Kevin Magnussen. They saw that Magnussen came in and thought, right, now's a good time to get Franco in and we can get out ahead of the Haas, and that's exactly what has happened there. So both on a new set of medium tyres, and Magnussen all over the back of Franco Colapinto, and this isn't a place that's very easy to overtake.
A couple of feisty drivers here, nose to tail.
Well, neither of them have a seat for next year, and Kevin Magnussen's not looking like he'll get that one remaining seat, but Franco would like to go to Sauber, and I'm sure show them what he can do in their last year in the sport before they become Audi.
So Russell pits, he will have a slow stop. Pits from currently 6th place. That's going to put him out amongst the Hulkenberg, sort of Perez-Hulkenberg area, isn't it?
Yeah, he's going to come out maybe in front of Nico Hulkenberg. It'll be a super effort from George, as here comes Kevin Magnussen round the outside on Franco Colapinto, who leaves his braking just as late and squeezes past the Haas to stay in that 12th place. Super bit of driving from both there as George Russell pits. Sergio Perez making his way down the main straight as we watch George Russell coming out of his pit stop. Perez gets to turn 1 ahead of him.
Magnussen tried the really tight line through 14 and 15. Colapinto saw it coming and managed it well.
Nico Hulkenberg into turn 1 before George Russell can come out. Russell into 8th place, then ahead of Lawson and Gasly and Tsunoda, and then this fight, Colapinto and Magnussen. But fresher tyres for George Russell, and he's got Nico Hulkenberg very much in his sights. But we got a yellow flag at sector 1, and that is Yuki Tsunoda spun around at turn 1. Still Kevin Magnussen battling away with the young Argentine, Franco Colapinto. This is absolutely brilliant. 15 laps to go here. Charles Leclerc has got a 6-second lead over his teammate Carlos Sainz. Kevin Magnussen down in 12 thinks, you know what, there might be a points finish here, but I've got to get rid of this stubborn Williams driver first.
Norris 1.6 behind now and starting to get towards the DRS zone of Max Verstappen. Some thought that they pitted Magnussen to make sure he didn't hold up Hulkenberg, who's in the points and coming through. And will this be the 5th straight time that Haas have scored points?
Yeah, Haas on something of a roll as we look at Yuki Tsunoda. Zhou Guanyu went spinning around there all by himself a little earlier in this race, and that's unfortunate there for Yuki Tsunoda. It'll be the 4th race in a row that Haas have scored. Oh, what's happened here? Magnussen and Colapinto. Tsunoda having his moment, and that's when we rejoin the battle.
Yeah, this is very feisty between these two.
Love it. This could get feisty as well. We've been keeping tabs on this, and now there's just a 2.5 seconds between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Now, Lando has been on these tyres now for 10 laps. Verstappen has been on these tyres for 16 laps. So there is a fresher performance advantage on those tyres for Lando Norris up against a Red Bull, which is a car that's looked like it's had more pace than the McLaren this weekend. So down to the drivers to sort this one out.
Certainly in this phase of the Grand Prix, in the second half of the Grand Prix, the McLaren's looked a much better race car than it did early on. They lost so much time, but they managed to recover that with elongating the first stint. And Lando knows how important it is to him to catch Max, and as Sainz still keeps edging ever closer to Leclerc as well. But that's a distant battle at the moment between the two Ferraris. There were 2 tenths in it at that time. Lando just starting to get into the turbulent air pouring off the back of that Red Bull, and that's why his progress will slow somewhat.
If the Ferrari drivers are allowed to fight for the lead and the win, there are enough laps at this current rate for Carlos Sainz to get right on the tail of Charles Leclerc. So we'll just keep a watching brief on that one as the nails start to get chewed down in the McLaren garage, and I'm sure at the Red Bull garage as well. If the positions remain the same here, by the way, Ferrari move within 4 points of Red Bull in 2nd place in the Constructors' Championship with 5 races to go and 2 sprint races as well. Meanwhile, George Russell, Martin, has now set a new fastest lap of the race, and he's catching Nico Hülkenberg at a right old rate of knots too.
Yeah, Russell can get up to P6 here, because I think he can catch Perez as well. So that Russell on a charge of P6 from the pit lane would be a pretty solid performance, wouldn't it? But he's got to get the job done first.
That'd be a super performance from George Russell, who's never actually scored a point in Formula One, starting as low down as he did. In fact, anything lower than 18th, he's never scored a point in his Formula One career. This is the view from Max Verstappen, with Lando Norris still behind him.
Under a second. Under a second. Does he get DRS down the pit straight?
Just waiting to see if he went through the detection zone. Less than a second behind him.
Detection's before P19, if I remember, isn't it?
He might have just been over a second behind at that stage. He's just got to try and hang on here and keep it under a second. It's Andrea Stella, the team principal at McLaren, was telling us before the race, once you get in the DRS zone here, once you have DRS assistance, then the car in front is very much in trouble. But you've got to get it under a second. That's what Lando Norris has done on the exit of that corner.
Detection point is there.
Right. So now he has got DRS on Max Verstappen. So is the car in front going to be in trouble? If not this time around, but certainly next time around. I've said it a few times, it's an extra 20 kilometers an hour of extra pace. It's so powerful, the DRS down this straight. You can see how Lando Norris is really gaining there. He took another 3 tenths out of Verstappen's advantage on that straight.
And he'll get another helping down the pit straight. But Max will now start using his battery strategy in a defensive way in the DRS zones. He knows he's got a race on his hands.
Came into this weekend 52 points behind Max Verstappen. That gap has grown after the sprint to 54 points. And this is where Lando Norris is trying to claw some of that back. And every point is precious as we get towards the end of this Formula One season in 2024. Another DRS straight coming up now along the main straight as we end lap 44 of this race and begin lap 45 with the drivers in 3rd and 4th in this race. And climbing up 40 metres towards turn 1, and it's just a couple of car lengths now that Lando Norris is behind Max Verstappen. And it's down to you.
Yeah, just quickly, he was told to change engine mode, was Norris, not engine mode, just strap mode. Probably to take away a little bit of harvesting to allow him to use his battery more to get him close enough into the DRS. They've done exactly that.
I'm impressed how well the McLaren can follow the Red Bull through the snake of the first sector of this lap. That's torturous through there, and he's managed to keep himself in play nicely.
And it's a great strategy by McLaren and super driving by Lando Norris to go much, much longer on his first stint, to give him a fresher tyre advantage to make moments like this count.
Watch this, because Max had a bit of oversteer coming out of the T11 hairpin. It puts Norris ever closer. Is it close enough? No, it's not.
But you can see where Norris is deploying there more energy than Max Verstappen on that last lap, which means that Max Verstappen might have a bit more to play with on this lap, because he knew the challenge was coming and he knew he needed that extra energy.
11 laps to go yet. This could run right to the end, this little battle.
And while we're focusing on this, guess what? George Russell is up into 7th place now. He's overtaken Nico Hülkenberg down at turn 1, and he is lapping nearly a second a lap quicker than Sergio Perez.
Yeah, why I said he could get to P6, George, because Perez is 28 seconds behind Piastri, so that's not doable. But P6 is definitely on. There, look how close they are now, down the pit straight.
Now this could be really tasty going towards turn 1. Does Lando Norris come steaming down the inside on this occasion? No, he doesn't.
Lando's got to make sure he doesn't do, you know, go chasing ghosts. He's got to keep it calm, keep close, and just be right there at the T11 hairpin as best he can. But following through here is so hard in a Formula 1 car.
They don't want another Austria. Well, certainly Lando Norris doesn't want another Austria.
Oh, he's gone really deep in there, but it's all right. And a little bit of curve there. Lando a little bit scruffy through that section, but he should still just about be in DRS, and he is.
And he's closer to Verstappen through turn 11 than he has been for the last couple of laps. Now, about 0.6 of a second difference can get you an overtake here on a lap if you've got that pace advantage. So it's about 0.7 of a second. The difference is down towards turn 12 we go. That is as close as Lando Norris has got to Max Verstappen in this phase of the race.
Yeah, Max really clearly using his car well where he needs to. Lando not messing around, trying to feign an overtake and wasting time and Max really wide through there, really wide indeed. So he's struggling at this pace. It's Max Verstappen despite the clear air.
And he's not enjoying these tyres. The Red Bull not enjoying the lack of grip that he's feeling on these tyres. We've got 10 laps to go here. And the battle out in the lead, by the way, about 4.5 seconds at the moment. And that has come right down in the last few laps. There is time for Carlos Sainz to get on the tail of Charles Leclerc. Here comes Lando Norris down towards turn 1. For one brief millisecond, had a bit of a look.
Max locked up big time going in there.
Didn't he just? And look at the difference now between the two cars. What was 6/7 of a second is now about a car length and a half as they went down through turn 2. This is a brilliant, thrilling end to this US Grand Prix. And whilst McLaren haven't had the domination this weekend that they were hoping for to continue their momentum, it is so important that they just chip away and take off points from Red Bull in this battle for the Drivers' Championship whenever they can.
Here we go.
Yeah. Lando Norris will sense this. He will know this now. This half a second difference is where Verstappen could be vulnerable by the ends of this back straight. He'll be deploying extra energy. DRS for Lando Norris, who's going to have to go the long way round, is he? Unless he forces Verstappen to go deep into that corner. Great placement by Max Verstappen. Norris knew it was coming, but now this battle will continue for the next 4 corners. And Verstappen goes wide. Norris tries to dive down on the inside. Can't go around that way. Turn 15 coming up now. Verstappen has just got half a length advantage. Norris is coming at him, has to concede for the time being.
Yeah, Max placing his car incredibly well. And Lando not getting frustrated, nor making leery mistakes. He knows he's going to get his chance. And he'll get closer again now down the pit straight. But it's the into turn 12 where he's going to really make it work. He's got to force Verstappen to keep locking up those front tyres and burning them out.
So we know that Lando Norris has got that DRS, Martin. How much extra energy did he deploy down that straight along with it to try and get near to Max Verstappen? It might mean that he has to just recharge a bit for this lap.
And Franco Colapinto just done the fastest lap of the Grand Prix for Williams, moving himself in, or staying in the World Championship points in P10.
Yeah, Colapinto already in the points for Williams, 8th place in Baku. Might be adding another point to that tally. Meanwhile, out in front, 5 seconds the gap between Leclerc and Sainz, and we're focusing on this battle for the final podium place in this US Grand Prix, and at the sharp end, the top two in the Drivers' Championship. Verstappen against Norris. Here comes Norris once more, and he's getting ever closer, and just when he thinks for one moment the chance is there, they run out of straights and he has to apply the brakes.
Yeah, he's going to have to get up really early in the morning to lunge Max Verstappen from there, so he's going to have to try and get him out of position somehow.
Easier said than done. Catch him out of position, keep applying the pressure, wait for a lock-up or a run wide here or there. Just one brief little moment could be the difference here between the result that was possible or the one that just got away.
Hülkenberg and Piastri have got black and white warning flags for track limits. We know that Norris has got one strike. I don't think I've seen a strike for Max Verstappen.
Lando Norris is getting closer here. Is he going to make the move? He's going to have to go round the outside if he does. Verstappen knew he was coming. There goes the switch back, but he's tantalising. He's still just one car length behind.
Verstappen did really well not to lock his front axle, front brakes going into that corner, and that saved the day for him. But that's the sort of thing that Norris has got to do. You keep forcing Verstappen out of his comfort zone into the wrong part of the racetrack.
Out in front, Charles Leclerc's just gone past a couple of back markers. He's cleared them now and is starting to hammer his foot down as he goes for another fastest lap in this race. He's making his way down towards turn 12. We're coming out of turn 11 now. Are you ready for another Texas rodeo down the back straight?
Does Max get in? He won't get any DRS from the car in front of him. The back marker, he might do on the pit straight though. He's ever closer.
He's ever closer. He just needs about 1/10 of a second more at the start of that straight.
Max takes a really wide line. You sort of think he's gone wide through the T11 hairpin, but it's just his preferred route, I think, through there, not to pinch the car too much.
Super driving. Both giving it absolutely everything in defence and attack, offence and defence on this Super Sunday here at the Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, it's textbook defensive driving from Max Verstappen. Nothing outrageous, just very good placement of his car and knowing when he needs to defend and when he doesn't have to.
Valtteri Bottas is the car ahead of Max Verstappen down in 18th place. Here comes Lando Norris once again with that DRS advantage. Can't go down the inside. Verstappen knew that was coming. Bottas keeps out of the way. And down towards turn 2 they go, separated by just 1.5 meters once more. While this is going on, George Russell still gaining on Sergio Perez. Another 8/10 on the previous lap. Taken out the Red Bull advantage in that particular battle. Liam Lawson still hanging on to 9th place. Colapinto steady in 10th.
Oof.
And that was a bit...
McLaren getting a bit tail happy as he's really hustling. He knows he's got to be closer than this into T11. And again, Verstappen taking that longer run, but I think it gets him good exit. And so Lando really on the limit now. And it's looking like he's going to have to work a little bit harder somewhere, somehow. He's not got enough at the moment.
Maybe force a mistake into that hairpin at 11. There's a mistake and a lock-up from Max Verstappen at turn 12. Norris was just a bit too far back to take immediate advantage.
Yeah, Max is so deft with the brake pedal. We've seen that all through his career, and he got away with that one nicely. He just got out of it. Look at cadence braking, I'd imagine. Just slowed the car down and released the front tyre to turn again.
What a scrap. Lap 51 now of 56 as Charles Leclerc crosses the line, and the gap out in front, 5.5 seconds for a race that Ferrari have absolutely dominated. He's led right from the start. Carlos Sainz managed to get past Verstappen with an undercut in the pit stops. Lando Norris lost the lead after taking pole. He is trying to get back onto the podium here, and once again disappears from the height of turn 1 down through turn 2 behind that Red Bull.
Yeah, Max knows it doesn't really matter how slow he is around turn 1. Just don't lock up and then let it go through here, because he knows the McLaren will be scrabbling around in the turbulent air behind him.
It's these corners here, isn't it? Turn 8, turn 9. This is where Lando just needs to be half a second, 4/10 behind.
It was a tidier run that time. It was a tidier run for Lando through that section of corners.
It is so much closer this time around. By the time they get to turn 11, needs a good exit out of turn 11, and I'm not sure it was particularly the exit he was looking for, Lando Norris. But here comes the DRS advantage in the second phase of this straight, and look how he's gaining. And this time around, he might just be able to go for the overtake, Lando Norris. But once again, Verstappen places that car brilliantly. Now, almost shoving the Red Bull forward, the McLaren right on his tail, trying to dive down the inside. There goes Lando Norris. Verstappen's got the inside line at turn 15, as now switching back, Norris wants to get better traction past the Red Bull. Didn't quite happen, but all the while, Verstappen's tyres are getting more and more worn, and those fresher tyres of Norris are keeping him in touch.
This, if you're a young racing driver, this is textbook stuff. Pay attention, watch this back many a time. This is brilliant driving from the pair of them.
I still think we got a few more laps of this between now and the checkered flag. Ferrari on for a 1-2 finish. In the week that Charles Leclerc celebrated his 27th birthday, he's on for victory at the Circuit of the Americas, and his teammate Carlos Sainz 6 seconds back. They seem to have held now that 1-2.
So Lando was 0.385 into turn 11 behind last time, and it wasn't enough, but I don't think he got the best exit, did he, from that hairpin? It looks like you always get a bit of a concertina effect, because the car in front is always going to be on the power before the one behind, of course, but he really needs a super exit here, does Lando Norris, and that looks as close as ever, doesn't it?
So is that good exit coming this time around?
And it was Max who got a little bit of wheel spin on the rear. Now this is a much better chance.
Right, here he comes then. He's been threatening this for a few laps now. Lando Norris trying to get past Max Verstappen. They're dicing which way and the other. Down the main straight, the back straight. Down on the inside goes Verstappen. He forces Lando Norris wide off the track. Norris comes back onto the track ahead of the Red Bull.
Norris really had to take avoiding action from what I could see long distance. We'll watch that. Of course, the stewards will be looking at that. Max will be on the telephone because that was a move.
Oh, took me outside the track.
Well, he did. He had nowhere else to go, but is that clever play by Verstappen, or is that Norris going extra wide to say, well, I had to do it?
Yeah, well, who knows? Let's see what they do. It was like, did he force him off the track? Others have had a 5-second penalty for that. But let's see what the stewards say. They need to say
I think goes ahead of the apex. Let me know if you think otherwise.
We think you were ahead at apex.
While that message is being relayed, really late reactions from Lando Norris to cut Max Verstappen off into turn 1.
I want to see them down the back straight before they got together with the overtakes, because it looked to me as if there were a lot of movement going on down the back straight, but now he's got to get off down the
He needs to get me back.
And that's the messages that you would expect at this particular moment in time. And the teams, I'm sure, are talking to race control and the race director as they head towards the back straight at the end of it. This was the move. He went deep, Verstappen. Did Lando Norris deserve a little bit more room? Should he have more room?
He's being told you were ahead at the apex. Now, exactly where you're going to decide the apex is a matter of interpretation on a longish corner like that. But, and also, it was a very late move from Lando up defending up into turn 1.
It was.
Very late move.
But it's been noted, Martin.
Yeah. I want to see, so what his best chance now is to get...
We are on it, Max, we know. And we've also seen the moving under braking at 1.
Yeah. So their best chance now is to hightail it down the road and get a 5-second penalty at the end, isn't it? Or if unless it's a 10-second penalty.
Race leader Charles Leclerc into turn 1. He's got 6 seconds between himself and Carlos Sainz, his teammate. That's not where the action has been. Ferrari have absolutely dominated here. The stewards are looking at Lando Norris for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, going off the track, getting ahead of Max Verstappen. What he needs to do, Norris, is to try and pull out a 5-second gap and make that penalty irrelevant.
But if he gets a 10-second penalty,
that's a good point.
Then he would fall behind Piastri as well. So McLaren might even have to think about dropping Piastri back.
Meanwhile, George Russell and Sergio Perez really going for it. That battle's been brewing for a while too. George Russell, who started from the pit lane, Sergio Perez, who started 9th in this race, and they're scrapping now to finish 6th at the checkered flag.
The stewards are looking at it, Max.
So obviously Max has been continuing the discussion on the Red Bull team radio, and yes, the stewards are looking at it, and I hope we get a decision one way or the other between now and the end of the race. Right, let us see, once again, on board with Lando Norris here. Verstappen almost makes a second move towards the braking zone.
He did, but I don't think Lando needed to move too much, but I think he'll take a penalty for that. I think he'll be told to give that place back.
Yeah, he wasn't ahead, was he?
Let's see. They'll look at it from all sorts of different angles and get the brake and the throttle traces, steering traces. But my gut feeling is he'll have to get that back.
Yeah. My gut feeling is he won't give that back, and they'll argue about it in the stewards' room afterwards. But
so our opinion is you were ahead at Apex, both cars went off track.
Yeah, he also went off, so it was clear.
So it's down to the stewards.
Let's see what happens here. Red Bull up against Mercedes this time around. Perez and George Russell.
So Norris has had 2 more track limits, so he'll be getting a black and white flag next time as well.
Yeah.
He's got to keep it in play as Lando Norris. As Esteban Ocon steals the fastest lap of the Grand Prix.
Just pitted again. Ocon. He did. He put the soft tyre on to take that fastest lap. Towards the main straight once again. And Perez ahead of George Russell. Super.
Also, Max, Lando has exceeded his track limits, expecting a penalty for that alone. So flat out.
Yeah, I haven't got the full track limit data here, but has Lando Norris gone 4 times?
I think it's his 4th time, yeah. So he's done it on 2 consecutive laps. No time to give him the black and white flag. I think he might take a penalty for that. He's going to end up behind Piastri at this rate and in P5.
Let's have a little look on that one. So George Russell, who's already picked up a 5-second penalty himself in this race for forcing Valtteri Bottas off the track, might be a bit more cautious this time around, as they have 1.5 laps to go, and Charles Leclerc is starting his final lap of this race. Here comes George Russell. Perez moves over to the left to cover him off. Russell looks to be ahead, going into the braking zone he is. Perez tries to switch it round and get a better exit out of turn 12, but George Russell is away. He's up in a 6th place. Fabulous drive from George Russell here, and while we're talking fabulous drives, this man, we've barely seen him for the second half of the race. What a race this has been for Charles Leclerc.
And I know, so we've had our 3rd strike track limits, which I know you'll know, so no more track limits, no more.
I know it looks on the screen, Martin, that these have more, but if you go off the track at the final corner, you get a lap deleted for that lap and then for the next lap as well.
Yeah.
It's just the way the system's set up, and I think that might have confused Red Bull too.
Yeah, it could have done, because it looked like he was showing 4 times. You might well be right there. The trouble is, they disappear off our screen, so it's like we've got to try and remember them all.
And into our screen, the big screen, comes Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris has got a 5-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage in his battle with Max Verstappen. Can he make up another 1.5 seconds to make that penalty irrelevant between now and the end of the race? What is irrelevant is that in terms of the battle for the lead is that they're scrapping for 3rd and 4th. Charles Leclerc started 4th in this race. It's been his birthday week here in Texas. He's the lone star at the Circuit of the Americas this afternoon. Ferrari win. Charles Leclerc wins the US Grand Prix. What a performance from the Scuderia, who for the first time since 2006 take a 1-2 finish at the US Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz comes home for 2nd place, and all eyes now on Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Norris crosses the line, and he was, I think, 4 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen when it happened. So the places are reversed. Verstappen increases his championship lead over Norris.
I feel sorry for Leclerc and Ferrari, because we've barely noticed them or talked about them, but they're a brilliant result.
And that's my boy, another win.
Let's go.
Mega.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Absolutely sensational performance from Ferrari, but so Norris, as you say, only 4.1 seconds ahead of Verstappen over the line, so 5-second penalty puts him behind, puts him a 1.5 seconds ahead of Piastri.
Yep.
So Norris keeps 4th. I think that's a fair cop.
But I don't think he'll be happy with it.
I think it's a fair cop. I think he'd been better giving that back straight away and then having a bit of a repechage. But again, you know, or are you better getting 5 seconds down the road and worrying about it like later?
That's certainly what he tried.
Yep.
Either way, Piastri finishes 5th. George Russell,
I guess they got a 5-second penalty.
Yeah, they gave you 5 seconds just at the end there for leaving the track, gaining an advantage. Not sure why.
Oh yeah, well then I should have just gone back behind him, shouldn't I?
Is that a message to his team to say, well, why don't you just tell me to give the place back straight away, and then I might have got him again?
Well, yeah, that's what I was just saying,
yeah.
basically. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, had he have found another second in those last few laps, he'd have finished 3rd anyway. So you could argue that one all day long. But yeah, Russell up to 6th as we expected, and that was as good as he was going to do from there.
And that's a disappointing afternoon for Sergio Perez.
Well, mate, you drove hard for that. You drove hard for that. We weren't as competitive as we should have been in the second stint, but you deserve that podium today.
My God, that was a hard race. Yeah, I tried everything with the defending. At least that was fun. It's just a bit weird that you can overtake outside the track.
Well, you can't, and the FOA put that right, so there you go.
Gains a 3rd place finish due to a penalty for another driver at the track where he lost a 3rd place finish to a time penalty in 2017. Right, we'll carry on the rundown here. Behind Sergio Perez, Nico Hulkenberg, great performance from Haas to score 4 points in their home Grand Prix. Brilliant performance from Liam Lawson, what a first stint that was. On his return to Formula 1, he equals his best finish in Formula 1 with 9th. And another super performance from Franco Colapinto, who did keep Kevin Magnussen at bay and took home the final points place in 10th. So, driver of the day, Charles Leclerc, without doubt. We said Ferrari were a bit confident about this one, Martin. They weren't as confident as a 1-2 finish at the end might have suggested, but they all had a smile on their face.
And they won well, didn't they? I mean, they aced the start, the pair of them, particularly Leclerc, held pace. And if it hadn't have been for that mighty scrap between the two main championship contenders, we'd have been talking an awful lot about Ferrari. You can see the pickup there on the tyres that they gather to help them with the weight of the car at the end, which was obviously a problem back in Spa when they didn't have that in-lap, when George Russell got disqualified for being slightly underweight. But that's not going to be a problem for the Ferrari. They were absolutely flying along. You said since 2006, was that the 6-car race, 2006?
That was 2005.
Was it?
The year before. Michael Schumacher and Felipe Massa in Indy in 2006. It means a lot to Ferrari. Remember, one at Monza from 4th on the grid, Charles Leclerc. They brought a heap of upgrades to Monza, went to Singapore expecting a very good weekend, but in qualifying they got kind of let down.
Stepped on their own tails a bit, didn't they?
Yeah, they did a bit, but they had the pace there, and they had the pace here as well. So you can argue in the last 3 races, you know, Ferrari have been the ones to watch here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in the Constructors' Championship, they move now to within, what, 6 points, 8 points of Red Bull to Ferrari. McLaren, 40 points in the lead. Ferrari 8 points behind Red Bull, and there's only 48 points between McLaren and Ferrari themselves. So they could yet end up as Constructors' Champions.
Absolutely. That's a 3-way scrap now, isn't it, for the Constructors' title between McLaren, Red Bull and Ferrari.
And this man, Max Verstappen, increases his lead yet again, 57 points now in the championship. And I do just wonder, did McLaren there make a mistake by saying not saying give the place back straight away to Lando Norris? That would have been the safest approach, to then let him go and try and overtake again.
It would. You don't know which penalty he's going to get at that point, so probably. But, you know, had he found another second in those last few laps, it would have been exactly the right thing to do. Take his 5-second penalty, still finish 3rd. So hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I think it was inevitable he was going to end up with some kind of penalty or instruction regarding that move, and I think, yeah, I think that should have been reversed.
Because he wasn't ahead at the apex, that was the key, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what the stewards would have looked at and seen.
Yeah. But you know, when you're steaming around the outside of a corner like that, where is the apex exactly?
You tell me, Martin.
Yeah, I know, but you see what I mean? It's
yeah,
you know, there's not a little post sticking out of the ground saying apex. There's an interpretation on that.
Anthony Davidson at the Skypad will be writing apex in big capital letters for us all, but he's got the Skypad technology to slow it all down again. What a win for Charles Leclerc, who before today had only led 4 laps in Austin. First driver ever to lead the first lap here from below the front row. Jenson Button, he knows a thing about winning in style. He's the man with the microphone in his hand,
Max,
and we'll hear from the top 3.
What a fight you had there with Lando, your championship rider here in 2024. Can you give us a bit more information of how it was for you?
Yeah, for me, of course, it was quite a difficult race. I never really had the pace to attack, so a bit different compared to yesterday. Yeah, just understeering a lot, struggling on the braking. So that made also the defending quite difficult, because every time if someone wanted to go for a move, I couldn't really brake that late. But yeah, it was a tough battle. Tried everything I could, of course, to keep him behind. And of course, at the end, yeah, to be on the podium is still, I think, for us a great result.
I think everyone's going to ask you how it was with Lando into turn 12 at the end of the back straight. Obviously, he ran wide, made the move, but it looked like you also ran off the circuit a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I have my opinion, but I don't need to say it here. I'll let the stewards do their thing. And yeah, for us, it was, again, a race that we learned a lot, and we'll just analyze that.
Well done.
He's so busy with the photographs down there that Ferrari drivers keeping Jenson waiting.
Hey, Carlos. Wow. I mean, you've had one pretty awesome weekend in terms of, we saw you fighting yesterday in the sprint race. You had the bit between your teeth. It's your first podium in eight races, but there must be a little bit of disappointment then, knowing that you could have had that win.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, first of all, congratulations to the whole team, to Charles, for an amazing result, a result that puts us exactly where we want to in the fight for the constructors now. So extremely happy for everyone in Ferrari right now. At the same time, obviously, I knew a lot of the race was going to be decided at the start. I knew Lando and Max were going to go hard at it into turn 1, and unfortunately, I got the worst of it, and I couldn't get that lead. And yeah, even though the pace from then on was really good, and I was all weekend really fast, track position is key, and I had to settle for P2, which anyway was a good race.
There's obviously a shift in the performance of the Ferrari this year. How is it to drive? And it seems that you guys are really good on tyres now, tyre management.
Yeah, it's definitely the strength of the car this year. How long we can go on stints and how little leg we have is something that I really enjoy, and something that has made me enjoy racing a lot more this year than what I did last year. Last year we spent all of the races defending, losing position. This year it looks like we just can go on attack mode, don't think too much about tires, and just push and overtake, which is fun, no? And enjoying it a lot, and I hope it stays like that until the end of the year.
Congrats, Carlos.
Thank you.
Cheer for Charles. You put on a clinic today. That was an amazing victory, Charles. You must be very proud.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very, very happy. I mean, it hasn't been an easy weekend until now. I've been struggling a little bit with with the feeling with the car, but I had the confidence that in the race the feeling was better, and it was the case. So we've seen it yesterday in the sprint race. We were a bit not scared, but we thought that the others will improve a lot more today, but we still had the upper hand. So really happy with today. 1-2 for the team. We couldn't have dreamed for better.
Talk to us about turn 1, the start of the race.
Well, it was a pretty good turn 1. That's exactly what I wanted to do, and we've had a really good launch. I knew that it was going to be very tight into turn 1. Yesterday I was a little bit the victim of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Today I gained from it, and that obviously helped quite a lot our first stint, because we had a mega pace, and then in the second stint it was all about managing behind. But we did a great job. I mean, the pace of the car today and this weekend overall was really good in the race. And that's mostly thanks to the engineers. They've been working like crazy in the last few months to bring the upgrades that we've had in Singapore and in the last few races, and it seems to be paying off. So yeah, the whole team is working super well. Pit stops were really good. Everything worked out well, so really happy.
Yeah, it's been 18 years, would you believe, since Ferrari have had a 1-2 here in the US, so you must be very proud of the whole team.
Yeah, very happy, and now we are still targeting the title. It's a long way to go, but it's a good start to this triple header.
Great win. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It is triple header, where we go to Mexico next week and Brazil and Interlagos the week after, and I'm sure the fans will be just as passionate at both of those venues, and there'll be just as many Ferrari flags as well. Triple header that will decide the destiny of the championship. This is the feeling I got when I got on the plane to come out here. What happens in these 3 races, Martin? Absolutely key.
Yeah, and Verstappen's extended his lead on Norris, but the constructors looks ever closer, as we were saying. And it's 6 races in 8 weekends, including 2 more sprints yet.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of racing happening in the next 2 months.
McLaren will say that this isn't the track that really suited us this weekend, and other tracks will suit us better, and Ferrari will say, well, we've got a decent package at the moment. I don't know what Max Verstappen's going to say, but let's hear from the
12
man in third and the other 2 now.
And you stayed within 5? Well, we were just fighting, so you know, he got me in 12 outside the track limits, because we both went wide. And then I think that was his last strike with the track limits, so he got a 5-second penalty, and then
he stayed ahead?
Yeah, and then
he pulled away or no?
4 seconds, so like 4.1. I was pushing flat out, and then I had traffic in the last lap in this sector. It's quite difficult. Yeah. We're not so fast today. Carlos, was it you in turn 9 that went over like a curb? There was like a lot of stuff that came flying. I don't know.
One lap, no?
Yeah.
I think it was a gust of wind, because I saw the same.
Yeah.
This is the battle?
Yeah, we had a few laps in a row.
This is a good track for racing, huh?
Yeah, because you have a lot of opportunities to go side by side, and you decide either you go inside or...
Oh.
So here he was already in front.
The hard were a lot more difficult than the medium, eh? For us, at least.
Yeah.
I destroyed my mediums behind Max. But
probably you were pushing the first few laps.
Turn 6, I was destroying it.
Detailed analysis from the Cool Down Room podcast this weekend. Charles Leclerc joining the party a bit late. And there will be lots of talks about track limits and forcing drivers off the track, or leaving the track and gaining an advantage. I think after this race, McLaren might say, well, Lando got forced off at turn 1 by Max Verstappen, and nothing was done about that. Although turn 1, first corner, first lap, stewards often take a different view given the skirmishes that are going on.
It's so hard to control. You've got to have track limits, otherwise you start making your own track up, your own field of play. You can't have big high curbs, because that launches cars, could launch them into the marshals or the grandstands or into each other. if you have too much alongside the track, it just, a bit like we saw with Lewis Hamilton, you're out of the race straight away. It's a really difficult thing. Then you have a track like this, especially that has sports cars, GT cars, MotoGP. The bike riders want something completely different to delineate the racetrack for obvious reasons when they come off their bike. So it's a never-ending problem. But you have to police track limits, otherwise it's just a riot, basically.
Max Verstappen finished 19 seconds behind the winner. That's actually the best he's done since before the summer break, so Red Bull might be a bit happier with that. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc giving Ferrari there was a sing-along to rival M&M here at the track last night. Easy to lose yourself in these moments, and I'm sure Charles Leclerc will do just that as he holds the trophy aloft. It's a special feeling to win as a Ferrari driver in the USA as well.
Third victory of the year, of course, for Charles. And, wow, he had that one covered quite comfortably, really, didn't he, in many respects, after that brilliant first corner where the seas just parted for him and off he went.
Yeah, we're a long way from the sea here, but they certainly did. The Constructors' Trophy presented there for, well, to a Ferrari team, as I mentioned, who are now just 8 points behind Red Bull. Fred Vasseur is assembling a very handy team together here, and Carlos Sainz playing his part, starting third on the grid and finishing on the podium in second place. And as for Max Verstappen, he came, they saw, he still extended his championship lead.
Yeah, some good defensive driving, no doubt about it. Car placement with a car that hasn't quite turned the corner as much as we perhaps thought after the sprint race yesterday.
It's swung around a bit this week.